You're listening to In Kap We Trust for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANYPodcast or on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of In Kap We Trust here at the Always Next Year Podcast Studios. I'm your host Shane. I'm joined by Rob, as always. Rob, sir, how are you?
Doing all right, hanging in there. Got a lot going on. Phillies off day. Can't be mad about a loss because they're not playing today. A little bit discouraging. Only 3 hits last night, but yeah, doing all right.
Yeah, it's since we last spoke, we took 2 of 3 from Cincinnati in a very offensively challenged series. And then we took only 1 of 3 against Arizona. Throughout both series, there were a handful of different things and different topics that were discussed on all over sports radio, all over Philadelphia Phillies Twitter. So we'll get into some of them, but let's start in the Cincinnati series. Let's start with some of the positives. We'll start with Zach Eflin. So by and large, he has been the most consistent pitcher of the staff all season long, and all of his numbers support that, whether it be missing barrels, whether it be overall ERA, his whip, and he's absolutely their most efficient pitcher. So when we need someone to give the bullpen a little bit of a blow, it's been Zach Eflin. What's it been like for you watching him versus, watching the Arrietas right now?
Well, it's nice to know that Zach Eflin, even on his worst days, he's going to go out and at least give you 5 and a third, 5 and 2/3 of semi-decent ball. And on his best days, he has a couple complete games under his belt this year. So I really like what I've seen from Eflin so far. And I like what you mentioned, the efficiency, the fact that he can get deep into the ball game without having a high, pitch total. And he's been really consistent about that. He's been able to do that from day one, from the start of the season, whereas Arrieta's been really frustrating. I mean, he kind of slogged his way through his last start, was able to pick up the win. The offense gave him a little bit of support there, but after a pretty decent start to the season and, decent first 4 or 5 starts, he has been bad. Well, he definitely has not been good. He's been really subpar since then. And from a veteran pitcher, you expect more from him. And it's been really disappointing to see him pitch the way that he has, at least ever since the month of May. And so Eflin has been very good. Arrieta has been a disappointment. So if I had to pick between the two of them right now, it's Eflin.
Oh, absolutely. Hands down. I don't think there's a person on the planet that's disagreeing with you, on that one. Again, and for a bullpen that is so taxed, that makes, to me, Eflin, an efficiency pitcher such as him, just that much more valuable to your rotation and to your club. Now suddenly you got a guy that you can count on pretty much almost every start out. He's going to go 6+, and that's a rarity right now in our rotation. But again, he went 8 last night, 8 really, really good innings, only threw 80-some pitches, 82 pitches, I think. And had the offense given him literally anything last night against another career minor leaguer rookie pitcher, who is really pitching very well over the last month, over there in Arizona. But, Eflin's just been that guy. He's been that breath of fresh air for your bullpen. Another guy who has pitched extremely well since coming back from AAA. We'll talk more in depth about him in a little bit in the podcast, but I'd be remiss if I didn't, in the first 5 minutes of this show, sit here and give Nick Pivetta a lot of credit right now. Complete game, fantastic post-game interview.
Absolutely, that's the best part of it. The F-bomb.
It was pretty great, and I enjoyed his little giggle that he had there, realizing what he just said, and it's brilliant. So, but yeah, Nick going out there and pitching a gem. And for him, he has been he has been so good in his 3 starts back. You texted me, and I remember this, either me or the group text, in St. Louis, that rain delay to start the game, and then his first inning where he let up 2 home runs, and you were like, he should quit baseball forever.
I think I posted that on Twitter.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Wherever the hell it was.
I posted something else on Facebook. I definitely posted that on Twitter.
Yeah, well...
And then I deleted it after the game.
I was just going to say, did you make the revenge tour of all the Pivetta lovers? Yeah, did anyone sit there and quote tweet you? But apparently not. Since
fortunately, I don't have a big enough following for that yet. I was able to fly under the radar with it.
That's shocking.
But I will own it, though.
So, well, there you go. But yeah, I mean, in his 3 starts back, man, I mean, he's 2-0. He's thrown 20 innings. He's only given up 12 hits, 4 earned runs, both 2 home runs. But one of the biggest things for me is he's more than a strikeout per inning right now at 21. And he only has 2 walks since coming back. This is a guy who nibbles. This is a guy who does at times struggle with command, or at least trusting his stuff. And these 3 starts right now, he's 1, trusting Realmuto, 2, trusting the game plan that Realmuto and Chris Young put together for him. And he's going out there and he's feeling, well, he kind of has 3 pitches. He throws a curveball and a slider. But they're, essentially the same movement, just a little bit of a speed difference there. But he's been really, really good, and that's been really, really encouraging right now.
Yeah, it's fun to watch, and you mentioned Realmuto. I give JT a lot of credit for kind of bringing Pivetta along, getting Pivetta to buy into what he's calling behind the plate. I think that, JT deserves a lot of credit for it, because this is a young pitcher who clearly was a little bit rattled, maybe didn't have the best communication with JT earlier on in the season, and they were able to hash that out. They were able to get on the same page, and because of that, Nick Pivetta looks a lot better. And, I mean, going out there, what was it, Saturday night against Cincinnati? Yeah, I think it was Saturday. And holding, that's a good offense. That's Eugenio Suarez, that's Votto, that's a whole bunch of guys who they can rake, they can hit the long ball, they can score runs in a lot of different ways. And to go out there and hold them to 1 run was really kind of a fluky run early in the game. And
oh yeah, it basically should have been a shutout.
Yeah, it should have been. And
2 blue
to get
pits.
the complete game out of that, that's pretty impressive. And that shows that he's really on the right track. And I think that he's going to be able to maintain this, or at least pitch somewhat close to the level that he's been at throughout the remainder of the season.
I think the biggest thing for me, and for, there's so many guys like this, but for me, the biggest thing is the fact that he's always been a mental head case. That first inning happens 2 weeks ago, where he has 2 blue pits, or however the run was manufactured there in the first. He crumbles. He doesn't bounce back. He gives up those early runs after a rain delay against St. Louis in his first game back. He crumbles. He was just able to battle and just keep his head. And that is, again, where I truly believe Realmuto is there and does have a calming effect on Pivetta. And he's able to trust whatever sign gets put down. You don't see him shaking too many pitches off right now. It's been oddly stress-free watching Nick Pivetta right now, which is crazy to me. And I'm a Pivetta fan. I definitely thought this was going to be a bigger year for him than what it had been early on. But, I cannot honestly say that I've always said, or that I've always thought, this is it. I'm going to have a really stress-free night right now. Like, this is where I wish I drank whilst watching Philadelphia Phillies baseball when Pivetta was taking them out. Now, I feel like I could just sit there and just relax. He's just been that good. Yeah,
he's been awesome. And we all know who the happiest man in the world is right now. That would be Jack Fritz. That making that really bold prediction at the beginning of the season, I actually called him out on. I think it was last week.
Did you?
And now, something along those lines. We did something about bad takes on our show.
Yeah.
And I called out Jack Fritz, and Pivetta's making me look bad and making Jack look real good right now.
Well, there you go.
So, good call, Jack.
Well, there you go. Good on you, Jack. Guest of pod 2 or 3 times now. But let's, before we transition into anything else, let's stay on the positives right now. Jay Bruce effect? He's filthy.
Yeah,
absolutely filthy.
He's been incredible. I mean, kind of wearing off a little bit over the last couple of games, but still, 6 home runs?
So he has 5 home runs and 13 RBI since joining the club. He's slashing .333, .353. He's not going to draw a lot of walks, so his on base percentage is basically going to be his hit percentage. And then .848 and an OPS of just over 1,200. I mean, that is fucking heard of.
Yeah, he's been here for a little over a week, and in that time, he's got more home runs than Reese does over the past month and a half.
Yeah, Reese is power cold, man. Him and Harper both, and Franco for that matter. I mean, our three biggest power hitters are absent right now. Yeah. Well, Franco's just absent from baseball. He is atrociously bad. Like Bastards
needs to be absent from the team.
He does need to be absent from the team. He is
put Kingery at third.
He is bad. Well, once we have a center fielder, Kingery will be back at third. But while on Kingery, who's playing pretty damn well?
He is. And I can tell you're satisfied about that, the biggest Kingery fan of all time over there.
I am pretty satisfied about it. Anytime that I can be right about a take that I've had, and LJ could be so wrong. LJ is a Franco lover.
Which is not working out well for him right now.
It is not. I will admit, I'm very rarely like super, super, super angry, like actually angry when someone in our city does well. Like I'm usually jokingly angry. Like I would be jokingly angry if Aaron Altair did something good and productive for the Phillies when he was a Philly. Because I disliked him that much, but I was still happy that things were going well. Franco, to start the season, I was like, I think by like week 3 or 4 of that, when they were calling him the best 8-hole hitter in all of baseball, I was so brutally angry. I don't know about you. I was just like, can he be wrong about one freaking thing ever? The man is never freaking wrong. And now,
wrong as hell right now.
Here we are. He's hitting like 114 over the last 40 games. He's graded out to be out of 251 hitters for slugging percentage and OPS, he is 246th and 249th. So, what is that? Is that good?
That's embarrassingly bad.
That is one of the worst things I've ever seen. So what a tale of 2 6-week stretches here for a hitter like Michael Franco. But we get more Kingery out of this.
And Kingery was in the same position last year. He was ranking pretty damn low in those.
He was statistically the worst hitter.
He was,
in baseball last year.
And now he's arguably one of the best, albeit over a limited sample size, but he's been great when he's played.
We should talk about that though. Last year he signed to a nearly unprecedented contract. The only other player that had received such a contract like that was Singleton, a former Philadelphia Phillies prospect traded over to Houston at one point. Kingery comes up and he had half a season of AAA baseball, half a season of AA baseball. He had, I think, 800 career minor league at bats or plate appearances in, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, whatever it was. That's a big ask, and he was thrust into a role that was unique. I'm not going to say that the Ben Zobrist thing doesn't work. He's obviously making it work this year, but I do think it's a big ask in the preparedness of a young guy to go out there and not know where you're playing, not know where you're hitting, not know if you're top of the order, if you're middle of the order, if you're back end of the order, and then having to adjust to a shortstop position when JP goes down. Just so much of that season was so difficult for a player like Kingery, but I feel like that experience is exactly what we can credit this season's success towards. That was the stressful go. And I think that speaks volumes to, one, the character and mindset of Scott Kingery, but the overall talent as well. I mean, obviously you can't do what he's doing right now if you're not a talented ball player, and he is.
You know what? I was thinking about that actually last week when they called Hazley up, because Hazley, had a very limited amount of time at AAA and was only 5 or 6 games there before he was called up to the big club because of McCutcheon's injury.
He had like 12 at bats.
Yeah, it was not a whole lot, but his situation is similar to Kingery's last year, where it's kind of a baptism by fire kind of deal. And Kingery, did not look good last year, but the experience of being up at the major league level and getting consistent playing time really helped him out a lot. I think that's a huge reason of why he's having the success that he's having this year, because of the fact that he was up with the big club last year, but he wasn't sitting on the bench. He's getting consistent playing time. He is starting more often than not. He was getting at least, 3-4 bats a game. It would be a different story if he's up at the big club for most of the season, but he wasn't playing a whole lot. In that case, I'd say I would rather have him down at AAA getting at bats. Sure. But the fact that he was playing a lot really, and facing major league pitching, facing a lot of aces that we have within our division, it's a key thing for him. And just because he didn't have success doesn't mean it wasn't an important season for him, because it was. And we're seeing that pay off this year. And hopefully it'll be the same story with Hazley. You know, once he comes back from his injury, hopefully he'll get consistent playing time instead of riding the bench, and he'll reap the benefits of that next year.
Yeah, so that was one thing, and I credit Gabe for this too. You know, when asked, you know, upon Hazley's initial call up, you know, how he would be utilized, would he be the fourth outfielder? You know, would you go with, I can't even remember who the hell was. Would you just leave Kingery in center field, and Jay Bruce out there in left? Like, what are you going to do? And he was like, oh, if he's up, he's playing. Like, I can't justify having him up right now and not having him in the lineup, because this is still development years for him. You know, he's still just 22, 23 years old. Adam Hazley is, you know, he's a year and a half into his, you know, professional baseball career. So I credit a lot, Gabe, to that. One thing I also credit Gabe for in this particular thing, one thing that Philadelphia fans are notoriously critical of Gabe is the fact that he is not overly critical of his players. He was pretty disappointed in Adam Hazley for not being forthright in saying, you know, hey, I've been dealing with a hip thing right now, you know, and a lot of young players, a lot of vets too, you know, at the expense of their body and their health, they try to grind it out. Right now, with a team that is, you know, just dropping like flies, I do admire Hazley for putting himself out there and trying to play, but at the same point, I respect the hell out of Gabe for saying, no, if you're not right, I can't risk you getting hurt further. And so they put him on the IL with the rest of the roster at this point. But it's really disappointing because Hazley, you know, that last game out there on the West Coast trip, you know, he was integral to winning that game, you know, with the double the other way, the worked walk. You know, he was, it was really impressive for him. So, but Hazley, again, you know, it's a hip flexor thing, and, you know, it's tough for this team right now.
Yeah, it's a tough go. They have a lot of guys on the DL. Pretty much half the teams on the DL right now, or IL, as I guess we're legally.
Oh, I'm going to rant the hell out of the politically correctness of that in Whiskey Ramble later.
Yeah, it's I still call it the DL.
Yeah.
But yeah, half the team is on the DL, as I will continue to call it. And Hazley being added onto that certainly doesn't help. But I agree. I respect Gabe for calling him out on it and for, you know, kind of wanting some accountability there. You know,
sure.
If Hazley's hurt, I respect him as well for trying to play through it. But at this stage in your career, you're a young guy, you're 22 years old, you got your whole career ahead of you, and the team needs you for that.
Oh, yeah.
That's more important than being able to squeeze in a few more games in the 2019 season, you know? So I like the fact that Gabe kind of went after him for it, said, hey, if you're hurt, you got to tell me. We're going to deal with it and take care of it right now as opposed to putting it off.
Yeah, I agree. And for him, you know, like I said, it is a minor thing, fortunately. I don't expect him to be, you know, on the IL, DL for too long. You know, I expect it to be the 10 days. And for him to be back, and quite frankly, we need him back. You know, he's a player that can work in a bat. He has an exceptional eye at the plate. He does have great hands. The power tool is the thing that's kind of severely lacking for him, but even that has been greatly improved since Ochart's, you know, arrival to the club. You know, so he does have a lot of value, and he isn't a true outfielder. And not to say that Kingery isn't making strides in that area. He is, but a lineup with Kingery at third and him and Hazley out there in center is significantly better than, you know, Kingery out in center and Franco at third, you know, or Kingery and, you know, some combination of Kingery and Gosselin or Kingery and Rodriguez. You know, that's not sustainable for any type of success, in my opinion. You can't have any of the three of those guys on the field. Gosselin, Rodriguez, or Franco. They need to be bench bound or, you know, out of baseball, Franco.
Yeah, Franco is basically a free out, and for the most part, so is Gosselin. Rodriguez is a respectable player, you know, he can
he's
do
baseball
things.
Stupid, man.
He's baseball stupid, but he can do things, you know, in small increments. He can give you a home run here and there. He's a decent hitter off the bench, but that's what he should be, off the bench, not starting.
Yeah. So those are most of the positive takeaways from these last two series here before we enter in 26 straight against the NL East. Let's talk about some of the negative things and some of the overly critical things right now all over sports radio and Philadelphia Phillies Twitter. So Nola, he has had such a strange year. the bullpen does not, it seems like no matter what happens in his starts, like that is the time where people are going to be overly critical of Gabe. Either he leaves him in too long, and he's the reason that Nola gives up that, 6th inning or 7th inning, double, triple, whatever. Or he doesn't, he takes him out too soon and the bullpen fails Nola, which was the case in Cincinnati, or against Cincinnati at CBP. Nola kind of grinding it out there. He got into his Nola ways where he starts to feel the game out and it starts to become, calm. Like as a fan, you're watching and you feel confident in what he's doing on the mound. And then that 7th inning, keeps happening for him where he runs into some trouble and it forces Gabe into a particular decision. Do I leave my true ace out there and see if he can work through it, or do we kind of yank him? So in that 7th inning, he gets the first 2 outs really quickly, then runs into some trouble. When he runs into some trouble, just because Reese isn't a first baseman, he's a DH who has to play first base. Any other first baseman picks that ball and it's fine and you're out of the inning, and Nola probably gets the opportunity to sit there and pitch, into the 8th inning, if not the full 8th inning. So there's a lot of different things that go in there, but the thing that was all over, again, sports radio and Phillies Twitter was removing Jay Bruce as your double switch candidate there. I feel a particular type of way about this that I feel is vastly different from everything on Philadelphia Phillies Twitter. So what is your take on that? Would you have taken Bruce out given where they were at in the lineup and, the likelihood of him coming up in any type of real situation?
Absolutely not. He's the hottest hitter on the team, or him and Kingery right up there being the 2 hottest hitters on the team. No. I can't talk. Was Franco in the game at that point? I think he was.
Franco was there. Kingery was in center.
Yeah, take Franco out of the game. He's essentially a worse hitter than whoever's pitching at this point. So take Franco out of the game, maybe put Sean Rodriguez in or something like that, or move Kingery to third and put someone else in the outfield. Don't take Jay Bruce out of the game. He's the hottest hitter on the team. And he was still in that stretch of having homered in every single game at that point. So, no. They absolutely should not have taken Jay Bruce out of the game there.
So let me pull it up real quick because I need to remember who the hell was everywhere. So Bruce had made the last out, right? And we're going into, we're only going to be down, or we were down. Were we not down yet? We weren't down yet. That's right. I think that they had tied it up and then Velasquez came in and he blew it, after Alvarez had already kind of blown it there. But Bruce had made the last out. So we have 6 outs to work with. He would have been the last, he ended up being the last hitter because Nick Williams was the hitter that came up to end the game. But to me, he is not a good outfielder, even though he has played very well so far. But you already have kind of a liability in Kingery out there in center since he is not a true center fielder. And then in left field, you have Jay Bruce. So you want to take out, to me, put someone else out there in the outfield that can cover a little bit more ground and limit the opportunity to give up any more runs. If it came down to Bruce batting one more time in the 9th, to me, you needed to make something happen prior to getting to your 9th batter again. It just, I was fully on board with it. I thought it was the right move. And more than anything, because of the bullpen right now, you needed an inning and a third out of Vince Velasquez. Pretty much didn't matter how bad he pitched. You needed an inning and a third. Otherwise, you were going to Nicasio or Ranger Suarez, I think was in the pen at the time. Who did you want to freaking go to that you could keep that even remotely close? You needed an inning and a third. And you said you wanted to take out Franco. Franco was up in 2 batters.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Going back to the issue of defense in the outfield, though, it is an issue. Jay Bruce is not the greatest defender in the world, but I feel like it's rare where you have an occurrence where having a better defensive outfielder makes a significant impact over having a guy like Jay Bruce out in left field. I think the chances of that happening where somebody hits a ball out to left field that somebody else could catch that Jay Bruce doesn't catch, or hitting a single to left field where they can throw out a runner and Jay Bruce can't, I think the chances of that happening are relatively minimal and not, at least not worthy of taking Bruce's bat out of the game.
I don't know. I guess I take a look at this, more so for the state of the bullpen than necessarily the state of the offense. And both are in shambles right now. One is just completely IL'd and the other one is just, woefully underperforming. But if you're telling me that you can't get through, Kingery, theoretically Franco, Williams was going to hit, ninth there later. But Hernandez, Harper, Segura, Hoskins, Realmuto. If those guys can't put up one run in the last 2 innings in the most critical and crucial moment of the game, well, you're probably not winning that freaking game anyway. It's the way I saw it. Again, the whole thing about, weighing the odds of these things. First of all, that's the beautiful part about the NL. Like AL managers don't ever have to deal with this. This just happens. Also, last night, Zach Eflin would have thrown a complete game if he was an AL pitcher. Like there are just so many more things that happen in NL baseball that make it great and allow us to have arguments about this and the different lines of thinking. To me, I wanted a more secure, this would have been totally different if we were down by 3 or 4 runs. Like you're banking on Bruce getting up at some point because you need him to get up. If you can't squeeze out one run going through the top of your order against a bullpen that wasn't that great, well, you're probably not going to win that game anyway. Bruce in or Bruce out. So to me, it was more important to keep that a 1-run baseball game.
That's fair. And that's what makes National League Baseball great is that it's a constant chess match, especially later in the game as you get towards the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning. It goes from being, I guess a normal baseball game to being a chess match between the managers, making the double switches, making the pitching changes, making all the changes that they need to make to give their team the best shot to win the game. You don't see that in the American League with the DH because it's really only about how you use the bullpen over there. Whereas there's a lot more that goes into it here. So
do you think people are overly critical of Gabe in situations like that?
Given that situation and the state of the bullpen, yes. He doesn't have a whole lot to work with. Like you said, half the bullpen is on the DL and they're still waiting for their best relievers to come back. Robertson, who knows how long he's going to be out. Tommy Hunter, same deal. Who knows how long he's going to be out.
Well,
Sir Anthony done for the season.
Yeah, we did finally hear that there's at least 2, if not 3 guys. Like Ramos is coming back for tomorrow's game. Actually, he may have even been back last night. I can't remember. Nishak, for what it's worth, is close. Tommy Hunter is close. And Adam Morgan is close. So
those 3 are huge.
They are huge. So theoretically, if we get 3 of them back, we can kind of stay afloat. This year is it's eerily similar to last year. Last year, we were defying all odds with our pitching. We were able to stay in first place and Gabe kept us there with the way that he managed. Truth, I think, and that pitching staff, at times pitching above their heads, we couldn't expect 33 starts out of Pivetta and Velasquez the way that they started last season. You knew that was going to take a hit. Arrieta taking a hit last year. I don't know that we really could have banked on it, but it happened. And then Eflin was kind of up and down and he was not what he is this year, last year, but the bullpen held its own. Last year, the offense wasn't talented. That's why they didn't score runs. This year we are talented. Things are not clicking. It's like they have different offensive identities right now. They have different ideas as to what they want to do. And I know your favorite thing is to
fire Malley,
which again, I don't know how much that impact that really truly makes, but I do know that, someone has to answer for the failures of this offense. It is entirely too talented to have this kind of a season. It doesn't make sense. But to bring it all back to that, you do have, a bullpen that if we get those 3 guys back, it allows for Gabe to continue to sit here and manage effectively enough and, smart enough to keep this team kind of in things. And that's critical, especially if your offense is going to stay this kind of stagnant. One more thing before we get into a rant, defending Gabe Kapler here a little bit, which is going to be my favorite thing to do. Eichhoff. So he has been bad. Really bad since May 14th, which at that point, I think he had an ERA in the mid to low 2s, at that time, entering into his Milwaukee start, which was the start I was at, and it was a dog shit game. But Eichhoff, 7 home runs allowed, on, what was it? or 8 home runs total. That's what it was.
5
against
home runs
Arizona
by him.
and 5 by him. And they were the first 5 actual hits he let up. I didn't even know that was freaking possible. This guy, and I love Jared Eichhoff. I want him to be good so bad. And at 88 miles an hour, 89 miles an hour, you have to be perfect with every single one of your pitches. If he does not have all 3 or 4 of his pitches working on any given night, he is a bad pitcher, and we are seeing it. He is getting barreled more than, I don't know that he has missed a barrel in, I don't know, well, since May 14th.
Yeah, it's been a while. Even the outs that he's recording, they're getting barreled up. Their line drives, their long fly balls to the warning track in the outfield. He's not missing anything right now. And I feel like it's a location issue, much like it has been with Aaron Nola throughout the season. Nola's been getting barreled up more often than he has in the past as well. So, location issues, they come and go. I think that they're the easiest thing for a pitcher to resolve or to work on and get better at. And I don't expect the struggles to keep up for Eichhoff. He's too good of a pitcher to keep pitching like this throughout the course of the season. I think that he's going to get it together. Hopefully sooner rather than later. He'll get back to pitching similar to the way that he was earlier in the season. And I don't look at this as being an issue that's going to plague him forever. I think that, it's a struggle. It's a slump that he's going through, and he's going to get out of it.
Do you think the move to the bullpen is going to kind of, I don't want to say re-energize him, but, get him right? He can understand going into an inning that he may only be asked to throw 3 to 6 outs, so, he can sit there and kind of breathe and, again, it's a completely different mindset coming out of the bullpen versus saying, I got to give my team 6-7 innings tonight. That to me, now, well, granted, I don't know that I could ever have the mindset of a bullpen pitcher, but theoretically, going in there, it should be good for him, and he very well may, I think they're going to go with the opener, on, well, whenever the hell his next start is, Sunday, maybe Saturday or Sunday. He could be pitching in that game anyway. It could go Alvarez for a couple innings and then go to Eichhoff and he's asked to give you 3 and then maybe go to Vince Velasquez and he's asked to give you 2. It's unique. So we'll see what happens.
It's an interesting situation. I think that Eichhoff could be a kind of guy who benefits from maybe spending a week or 2 down at AAA like Pivetta did earlier this season. We all saw how well that worked out for Pivetta. He came back and he's been great ever since then. So maybe going down to the minors, spending a week or 2 down at Lehigh, get himself right there, face, lesser hitters, just work on the command and throwing strikes and then bring him back up to the major leagues. And who knows, maybe something like that could help him out.
It could in theory. I think the difference for him and Pivetta is the fact that he has been pitching in the minors when he's been pitching because he's been hurt for 2 or 3 years. Ever since his really good year, he's been battling, nagging little awkward injuries that have kind of just lingered for him. So he hasn't really had the opportunity to find any sustainability at the major league level over the last 2-3 seasons. So I don't know how much good that would do for him. He started the season at AAA, obviously. But something has to give for him. And hopefully a move to the pen can kind of, get him right. And I'll be curious to sit there and see what happens. But that decision to put him in the pen was made by Gabe Kapler and Chris Young. And it is 100% the right decision right now. And we're going to rant a little bit about Gabe. So I put out a tweet earlier this week that had said, since when did the word analytics become a swear word? And it appears to only be a swear word in Philadelphia. I'm of the mindset that says if you do not approve of analytics, it's probably because you're just too stupid to understand it. And I know that offends some people. And I gotta say, I really don't give a shit. To me, and I try to explain this to my one buddy who absolutely loathes Kapler and, hates analytics, as he says. And I'm like, well, explain that to me. What do you hate about information? He had nothing to say because you can't say anything. So I tried explaining it in this particular way. I said, if you had to, Rob, so if you had to take a math test right now and I said, here, take this test. And I told you fucking nothing about it, how do you think you'd do?
I suck at math, so I'd probably do pretty damn bad.
Okay. If I gave you all of the information necessary to make the best choices on a multiple choice freaking test, do you think it would do better or worse than having no preparation whatsoever?
I would do better, but once again, I suck at math, so
doesn't matter, but you would do
better.
better. And that's where it's at. If you have information available to you and you have people that can put that into effect in a way that works, why in the hell would you say no? It makes no fucking sense. I don't care how much we're cursing in this one because this is a gay brand right now. But you sit there and if you look at any of the organizations who have been successful over the last decade, you look at Chicago and Boston and LA and New York, Tampa, even, Houston, you take a look at some of these coaching staffs, these organizations, the way that they, go in their player development and everything is geared towards what baseball is today and what's important. There are certain patterns that more advanced statistics help you to make a much, much better decision. We can sit here and, look, all season long, Vince Velasquez, first 5-6 starts, his ERA was under 2, right? Something like that, 2.5. People were like, well, he's our best pitcher right now. Yet when you sit here and you look and you're like, all right, let's think about this. Every single ball off the bat is 100 miles an hour. Well, there's a pattern that follows information such as that says eventually if you hit balls that fucking hard, they will find holes or they will find seats. And they started to. There are certain bits of information that were not necessarily available to us or that we were not looking for 10, 15 years ago. You could go 100% on field. You could go 100% on, well, this guy's a 300 hitter. Well, what does that mean? Does he get on base? Does he work pitches? What does the guy behind him do? There is so much in this game right now. It's become, to an extent, flawed in its over speciality of it. It's a difficult thing. You need very, very smart people in your clubhouse and in your organization. And we are fortunate enough in Philadelphia that we have Gabe Kapler, that we have somebody, and I'm not saying Matt Klentak's a genius with this, that still remains to be seen, but what they all inherited here, what Gabe inherited, what Klentak inherited, what this new ownership there, inherited, or management there inherited, was something that was left in complete shambles. We had yet to adapt to this. All the organizations I mentioned earlier began this a decade ago when this information became relevant and known to baseball and to organizations all across the major leagues. The Phillies were not one of those teams that were like, more information, let's jump on this. Let's do what improves the organization. I do not understand the people that sit here and they say, well, analytics, this, analytics, that, and their bullshit Philly accents too, and just makes them sound even goddamn dumber. If you don't understand the word and what the information that follows in the definition of that word, I don't really think you're allowed to have an opinion on that. And I genuinely believe that most of the people that listen to sports radio are just too damn stupid. What's your take on analytics and the swear word of it?
Well, I'm not a big analytics guy. I do recognize its importance. I do recognize that there is something to it, that all these winning teams employ it, and I mean, there is something to it. You've got to respect the fact that these numbers tell a story about the players that you won't see from the eye test. I'm a big eye test guy myself.
Same here.
Visual, just looking at their swing, looking at how they pitch, looking at all the physical stuff that you can see on TV and judging a player that way. I respect what analytics can do to help out a team, to help them win. But I think that the eye test still needs to be the first basis of judging a player's value. I think that analytics, you can use it as a complementary thing, Well,
no one's saying to be 100% analytically driven.
No, I'm saying you gotta go 50-50.
Yeah, I don't know that you can even put like a percentage skew on that. I think that what people misunderstand is analytics is more for the preparedness of every game and every series and every at-bat. It is a prelude tool to the actual event. Now, if all of your information says, go with this bullpen pitcher today, and then in the bullpen, Gabe picks up that phone and says, hey, is Hector ready right now? And that bullpen coach goes, dude, no, his arm is not right. Like his ball is not moving. Okay. we will now adjust because this is what we can physically see right now. If a player is in a just awful way, like an Eichhoff, the information may tell you a different story, but when you're physically watching something not work for an extended period of time, you make the change. Analytics is not something like last year. People were really critical of Gabe, and rightly so, in the beginning of his tenure. And we heard it. What does the note card say? What does the index card say? We said it on our show because we didn't quite look deep enough into the meanings of it and how much good analytics does. Gabe was sitting there and it genuinely looked as though he reviewed a note card and said, this is what my data tells me. This is what I'm doing. Well, any asshole with an index card can do that. And Gabe found that out, and then throughout that entire season last year grew and evolved. He's doing that even still right now. He's continuing to evolve. He's continuing to trust players. He's continuing to make difficult decisions like the Jay Bruce one at a critical position. He was probably thinking very similarly to the way that I was, that said, we need to keep this at one run, and I need to trust my very talented offense to snap the hell out of it. I trust that more than I trust making multiple pitching changes, or leaving a Jay Bruce out there. There's just people sit there and they just have this negative annotation with the word analytics, and I don't think they fucking understand it. I just don't think that you should be able to speak on things you don't understand.
Yeah, like I said, there needs to be balance there. I mean, say you have Scott Kingery come up to the plate in a clutch situation, say it's 2 outs, bases loaded, bottom half of the 8th inning, and say for his career he's a 150 hitter in that situation, but he's hitting 400 over the past 25 games or so. I think a situation like that, maybe you go with the eye test or the fact that he's hitting well over the past however many games over the fact that during the course of his career he hasn't had great numbers in that situation. You need to be a good judge of, which statistic is going to prevail there. And that really is based on the eye test. So
which is something that, would you agree, Gabe has improved drastically on?
I think he has, yes. I would agree there.
So analytics is not a swear word.
It is not a swear word, but it shouldn't be treated as the Bible either.
Well, we agree on that. It is not the be all and end all to every situation. But it is a very, very useful tool. And again, I will explain it just one more time. If I asked you to take a math test and told you fucking nothing about it, I hope that you understand that you would fail.
I would get a 0.
Well, that's even worse than I would imagine anyone would do in a multiple choice test.
But hey, like a 30.
30. We'll roll with a 30. But if I gave you the information beforehand and allowed you to study that,
you get like a 50.
And that is 20 points higher. And that is the difference between a Hall of Fame player and a garbage player. No, not really. But same principle stands there. But every once in a while, I will go on these Gabe rants, and because there are situations that people, lately it's been Angelo Cataldi, who's just been dog shit, and I've wanted to punch him in the throat every single day. It's been awful. And when those things happen, my timeline on Twitter gets just fed up with nonsense of people who are just too stupid to have social media. They shouldn't have it. And that's why I talk on these rants. So, that'll be our small Gabe rant for this week. And I'm sure next week someone will say something that pisses me off severely enough.
By the way, speaking of fake accents, Angelo Cataldi, the fakest accent of all time.
He just sounds like such a weasel. No, you're not wrong at all. He is something else. But the next 26 games, we mentioned it earlier, in the show, the next 26 games are against NL East opponents. And the NL East right now is suddenly a more interesting conversation than it was, throughout most of the first part of the season here. Obviously the Phillies are now, just for the second time all season, they spent one day out of first place early in the year when the Mets overtook them. But all but one day up until the other night.
Thanks for the help, Pittsburgh. So yeah, terrible team. They have been in first place. They're obviously now in second, a game behind Atlanta. And you have, game behind Atlanta. And then I think Washington is finally starting to heat up a little bit. I think they're 7-3 in their last 10 games, 8-2, something like that. Yeah, I don't have them pegged as being a threat though. I think they're going to cool off.
See, that's a team where I look at and I just look at their talent and I'm like, they should be better than they are. And they will be. Like, they will level off. They were never as bad as they begun this year. But I do look at, pitching's rotation like that. Their bullpen's their biggest issue. Their starting pitching and their offense, on any given night can win you a game alone. And you never even have to consider the bullpen. But, it's divisional matchups and anything can happen, in those divisional matchups. What are some of the, key things that you would be looking for right now within the next 26 games that you need to see to give you more confidence heading into the All-Star break?
I just want the bats to get going, man. I want to see the ball flying out of the ballpark off the bats of Reese and Bryce. That's the biggest thing, is to get the two of them going at the same time. I want them to be putting up big numbers. I want breakout games where they score, I won't call them breakout games, but more consistent games where they play like they did the first two games of the Arizona series, scoring 7-8 runs, and winning those ball games, and then throw in some breakout games as well where they score 14, 15, 16 runs every once in a while. I want to see them mashing the baseball, because we haven't seen that since, the first 2 weeks of the season?
Yeah, pretty much.
They need to get out of this funk that they've been in. They need to get everybody going offensively. They need to get Bryce, Reese, JT, Segura all going at the same time. Cesar as well. Maybe get a little bit out of Franco if you can, but hopefully he won't be playing a whole lot, because hopefully Kingery will be at third base, mashing the ball like he has been. Jay Bruce, hopefully he can keep it up, or at least hit 250-ish and give us some power there. Yeah, it's the offense. I'm going to be paying attention to the offense. I think that the pitching will be good enough. Looking for better stuff from Arrieta, obviously. Looking for something from whoever's going to take the spot of Eichhoff, or if they're going to go with the starter there, or the opener, I should say. Want to see Nola level off a little bit and start playing like he's capable of, and I want to see Eflin and Pivetta keep doing what they've been doing all season long. If they can do that, and that's a tall task, because that's a lot of things that they need to get right there, but if they can do that, then I think they'll do pretty well during the stretch.
Yeah, going with the first thing that you said there, and Giglio put out this tweet and stat, and we are not super fans of Giglio here, but the Phillies are 34-6 when they score 4 runs or more, and they're 4-24 when scoring 3 runs or less. Now, I would assume if you put those exact numbers and specifications on any ball club, it's going to mirror, similar numbers there. But 4 does seem to be the magic number for this offense. And when you do take a look at it, and when you see names like Harper, like Reese, Segura, JT, Kingery now, Cesar, who has always had the ability to hit 290, 300, this offense should regularly be putting up 4 runs. Our concerns should be the pitching staff. Starters, because we have, 30% of a rotation, and bullpen because everyone's literally dead. We shouldn't be worried about our offense right now. So to me, that is 100%, the biggest thing to get right. And I think that, each player is kind of uniquely sacrificing something to, I don't know, maybe go against what the expectation truly is. People want these big power numbers from Bryce Harper, right? And rightly so. I want to see those home runs too. Last year, I don't remember the exact stat line, but I know that he hit 212. Now, batting average is not indicative of everything in success. Bruce is a prime candidate for that. People were like, he's hitting 215, 218 when we pull him from Seattle. Why do we want this guy? Because he mashes and he's the new baseball. That's why. Because he can make you pay for the mistake pitches that he makes you make. That's great. Bryce Harper last year hit 212, but he had 19 home runs through 68 games of play. Now he's at 251 and he has 11 home runs. Well, what do you want? Do you want Bryce to hit 220 and have 20 home runs, or do you want him to hit 250 and have 12?
Give me a medium ground. Give me a 235, 240 with 15 homers.
And I'm not saying it's totally unrealistic to attain what you're saying right now, but it's 2 totally different philosophies in the box. Bryce Harper's laid down 4 or 5 bunts this year, 3 of which have been successful. Is that what you would assume Bryce Harper to be? Bunting into the open area of a shift?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not, but it's when you sit there and people are constantly at your throat because you're not hitting 300, you're not hitting 275. Well, eventually you're like, well, shit, I need to up my average right now, and I need to get on base. I need to get myself going. So he does the little things. Okay. Why are we so pissed off at that right now? The guy over his last 25, 30 games is hitting over 300. Doesn't have it, he's got like 3 home runs in that stretch, but he's hitting over 300. He has the RBI, considering the lack of people that have been on base for him. He's playing excellent defense. He's incredibly aggressive and most of the time successful on the bases. Why are we sitting here and picking the one thing that he's not just absolutely mashing? Or, statistical category. It just doesn't make sense to me. Just lay off him. Lay off all these guys.
Well, it's because it's what he's known for. He's known as a masher first and foremost. So I think everybody is thinking, okay, we signed Bryce Harper to this big $330 million contract. He's going to be hitting 40, 45, 50 homers, most of the seasons.
So, and I want that too. Do you think it's easier to have a hot second half, power-wise, going into that second half, already having locked down your average? You're making solid contact. You're getting on base. Or do you think it's easier to flip that switch hitting 210 and striking out a ton, which you've mentioned last week he's cut down on?
Yeah, there is something to that, having the higher average and being able to get the home runs going in the second half of the season. We saw it kind of the other way around, though, with Bryce last year, where he's hitting low 200s. It might have actually been below 200 at the All-Star break.
Yeah, he was hitting 212, I think.
Somewhere around there. And he just started mashing, and the home runs kept coming in the second half, got his average all the way up near 250. I forget his home run total. It was somewhere in the high 30s, I believe.
Yeah.
And
so
34. We saw him be able to get going with the average in the second half of the season while keeping the power numbers up there. So it might not be the case with Bryce that he needs to have that high average to get going, but I would venture to say that it is the case with most players, and it certainly has a higher chance of being beneficial to Bryce.
Yeah, well, I guess I agree. I see that point of logic there. To me, I just sit there and I do sit and say there are small things that these guys are doing in order, that they may be sacrificing what they are known for in efforts to have a more well-rounded bit of success. And because of that, I feel like the overall success of the team isn't necessarily popping because of, if you're a home run hitter not hitting home runs, well, this is a different age of baseball. People are not manufacturing runs the way that they did in the 90s and the 80s and before. But one other thing that you did not mention in your important factors, and I think you're spot on all of them. The one thing that you left out is getting healthy. And that is for an Adam Hazley return to center field makes your lineup that much better. Even a Roman Quinn, who I do not love, he is at least an interesting bench piece. Imagine putting him out there for a defensive replacement, or a base, pinch runner or something of the sort late in the game.
Yeah, you could put him in for Jay Bruce, say if Bruce reaches first base or down by a run. Put Roman Quinn out there. He can play a good left field if you need him to.
Would you have put him in the game in efforts of a double switch? Say, I don't know, when they took Nola out the game?
I would. You know
I'm
what?
Just fucking with you.
I mean, that's a good question, though. I might have, because
you trust him more than Nick
He's
Williams?
not as bad of a hitter as his numbers showed last season. I think that he is a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be losing as much as you are when you put Gosselin into the game.
Yeah. Well, Gosselin's hardly a major leaguer, and local
Gosselin
guy,
is
no
not
offense.
a major leaguer. He's only a major leaguer by title.
Likeable guy, likeable enough anyway. But again, getting Hazley back and then getting the 3 guys that we mentioned who are close back, I think in the bullpen is extremely critical.
That's the biggest part right there, is getting the bullpen healthy.
Yeah. If you're going to keep scoring less than 4 runs a game, you're relying very heavily on your starters to, give you 4 or 5 or 6 innings, more if you're Eflin. But then you are truly relying on, arms like Neshek to be more willing to pitch, more when the team needs you, not when you feel like you can. Adam Morgan to come back and be shut down Morgan as he was, and Tommy Hunter to come back and be the second half Tommy Hunter that we had last year, who was a very, very good pitcher. And he was someone who wanted the baseball literally every single day, and I respect the hell out of him for that. And then again, we got Ramos back last night, so.
And that's big, because the arms that we do have healthy in the bullpen right now, they're going to start to get taxed if they have any more heavy usage. We're talking about Nicasio, we're talking about Alvarez, we're talking about Garcia. All those guys, we're talking about Neris as well.
Sure.
They've had a lot of use in this time where the bullpen's been strained because of the injuries. So getting those guys back will allow them to get a little bit of a break and maybe Nicasio hasn't pitched that well. Maybe he'll start pitching better when he doesn't have as heavy a workload. And some of the other guys, it'll take a lot off them. So it'll ease their situation. Hopefully we'll see them perform better in the second half.
That's going to make Kapler's job so much easier. In a game like the Jay Bruce game, if he has a full pen, well, now he can make another pitch. He can go to Vince Velasquez right now without making a double switch because he knows he has 2 or 3 more arms that he can use before getting to Neris. He had 2 arms that night before getting to Neris, and he needed to use them both in 1 inning. After that, you were fucked. Having a full bullpen right now is going to make his job that much easier. And we saw it last year, the way that he was able to sit there and put together a good pen and a decent rotation. And for an offense that was just not talented, he was able to keep that team in first place for a very long time into the season. So it will make Gabe's life that much easier, which in defense of Gabe, little intersegment bit. So we've put in intersegment bits in all of our segments now, which most of you regular listeners have now kind of caught on to and you participate in a little bit, which we enjoy. This one is in defense of Gabe. So in this intersegment bit, we talk about things that we ourselves will blindly defend to the day that we die, for things that are on the baseball field. And then this week, because I'm pissed off about the Gabe Kapler stuff, we're also going to throw in one thing that we will defend about Gabe Kapler blindly to the end of time to any Phillies fans who sit there and criticize and critique him as frequently as dumb Philly fans do. So, Rob, we'll start with you. One thing that you will forever defend non-baseball related.
Carson Wentz. Everybody hates him because of the injuries. Everybody hates him because, well, I wouldn't say hates him, but they give him crap because he's never played in a playoff game and he got this big contract. The dude's a really good quarterback, and I believe he's going to win a Super Bowl here. So I will defend Carson Wentz.
Well, I will stand on that fence with you. I am 100% there. Yeah, he's a super deserving of the extension that he got. And, Roseman and the Eagles front office have surrounded him with enough talent to make that, success even more likely. So I'm with you on that. I went with food. So I went that a charcoal grill is forever better than a gas grill. I understand the convenience of gas and the time constraints that society puts on us now that we may only have 10 minutes to cook. But whenever you have the opportunity, roll with charcoal. It's the right choice. Our defensive Gabe, about Gabe part. What do you got, Rob?
What we were just talking about, his use of the bullpen. I mean, you can't blame a guy. You can't put much blame on him when he doesn't really have a bullpen to work with in the first place. So just to be able to do what he's done and kind of manage that the way that he has, he's done a good job with what he's had to work with.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously me being a very big Gabe guy, very pro Gabe here, at Always Next Year. My thing is that he is the new philosophy and new age of professional baseball. This is what the good organizations do. This is what the LA's, New York's, Houston's, Boston's, Tampa Bay, Chicago, Minnesota. Like, this is what these teams do now. This is the more information that you have and the smarter manager that you have making those decisions, and the team that you can put, not the players, but the team that is with Gabe Kapler, his coaching staffs, his stat department, what you can do there. This is what baseball is now. If you do not understand that, read a freaking book. Learn about it. If you love baseball and you want to just continue to watch and understand why the game is changing, and it is changing 100%, and you could argue that it's for better, you could argue for that it's worse, but the reality of it is you have nothing to do with that. If you want to continue to enjoy these things and not be maddened by the small intricacies that you do not understand, pick up a book and educate yourself on even some of the most basic of things. Look at the barrel percentage. Just look at, I know exit velocity is something that people hate, and launch angle is something that people hate. It's important when your entire swing and offense is designed on launch. It's important now. Taking a look at pitching and saying, shit, this guy is regularly inducing true soft contact. We can trust him if we have a good defense behind him. Okay. Guys like a Keuchel can last if you have a good defense behind him. If you have the Phillies defense behind him, probably not, which is good why we didn't sign him, in my opinion. This is a new era of baseball. You need to get on board with that because we cannot change that. You just can't. So lay off, Gabe. We are blessed here in Philadelphia to have a manager who is as analytically driven and as smart as Gabe Kapler is. Two things before we end this one. We talked a little bit about it earlier when discussing the previous two series. But Pivetta obviously super hot. Eichhoff super, super cold. So Pivetta in his 3 starts, we ran through those stats. He's 2-0 in those 3 starts, with 20 innings pitched, 21 Ks, 2 walks, only the 4 earned runs in those and 1 complete game. Totally different story for him from the way that he started this season. If you had to ballpark your confidence in him right now, and if we were heading into a wild card game or an elimination game of sorts in the playoffs, if it came down to Pivetta and that was where the natural rest took you, would you skip a start and go to Nola? Or would you be comfortable and confident in saying, Nick can handle this start right now?
I would be pretty confident in Nick. I mean, if it's a wild card game, you use the bullpens, you use the other starters even as you need to. If you want to bring in Nola, say in the 4th inning or something like that, by all means go ahead. But I would be comfortable with Nick Pivetta getting that start.
Vastly different from 3 weeks ago?
Vastly different.
I agree. And then the other name that we mentioned, the now no longer 5th starter. Since May 5th, the Brewers game that I went to at CBP, he has pitched 27 1/3 innings, and he has allowed 27 freaking runs, earned runs, 16 home runs in 27. And that is,
good Lord,
that is the literal definition of batting practice. Like, that is your last bucket of balls in batting practice after you've done all the drills, after you've taken the ball the other way, after you've just, this is swing the hell away as hard as you can. That's it. That is it. Like, I have no power right now. I would love to face Jared Eichhoff. I would find it. I would find my freaking power. I do not understand what is going on with him right now. But I do hope to God he gets right. So for this week, we believe it's going to be the opener again. It did work out in LA. No, LA's a different type of team. LA's stacked with lefties. It made sense. I don't know how much sense it makes against the Braves. It's a really balanced lineup, lefty righty. I don't know that you can go with an Alvarez to start that game. Maybe you start Vince Velasquez just for an inning or two. Then you go on to Eichhoff. What would you do? Or would you bring up Cole Irvin again? Would you pitch De Los Santos, who would be on regular rest from AAA? Drew Anderson? What's your option?
I'd rather just bring up De Los Santos. Maybe I don't want to treat it as a throwaway game, but bring up a starter, bring up a guy who can hopefully give you 5 or 6 innings. Don't tax the bullpen over one game.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of going with the opener there.
I agree. All right. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is, and you sent this out, the Phillies are not well represented right now in the All-Star ballot. Why? First of all, Philly's a big market. You would assume a player like Bryce Harper on name alone would be a top 5 vote getter, even with his mediocre season right now. Do you think he's just villainized for, at the time, taking the richest contract in baseball history that was that way for 4 days before Trout took it?
I think there is something to do with that. A lot of other cities, you hear the boos that Bryce gets when he steps to the plate. I think that he's not exactly popular amongst the rest of the fan bases, but I also think that Philadelphia is not really, it's not a gimmicky fan base where everybody cares a whole lot about the All-Star votes and getting their players in. We just want to see them win games. That's all we care about. Yeah. We're not big on going out there and filling out a shitload of ballots every day. And like some other cities are, you'll see Chicago, there'll be stuff in the ballot box. You'll see Los Angeles do that, New York.
So let me ask you this. Why has Major League Baseball, or sports in general, because this is not just, or specific to baseball, why is it not you vote once?
I don't know.
If you have an email address,
you can vote 5 times a day.
5 times a day throughout the entire period of time. It's insanity. Like, why? Let's all vote once, and that's it.
Because they want the numbers.
It doesn't make sense to me.
It's all about the numbers.
It's a completely flawed system.
They think it's sexy to have players getting, 10, 15 million votes, as opposed to if everybody could vote once, maybe a couple 100,000 per player.
A couple 100,000 right now is basically what the Phillies have.
Yeah.
Like, total. But yeah, Bryce is what was 10th, amongst all-star, vote getters for outfielders. Was it 10th, 8th, 10th?
7th, I believe.
I don't think he was that close.
He was in the top 10, I think.
I know he was in the top 10. Kutch was just outside.
No,
the top 10.
you're right. He was 10th.
Yeah, and Andrew McCutcheon, like I said, I think he was just outside. He was 12th, 13th, something like that.
Kingery was like
good for him.
16th or 17th.
Which is great. Kingery, the all-star center fielder. Our leading vote getter is Cesar Hernandez, who is batting 180 over the last 10 games, 14 games, something like that. Really, really hurt going back to the leadoff spot for him. Which, side tangent real quick, just quick, would you flip-flop him and Scotty? Scotty's not your typical leadoff hitter, but leadoff hitters all across baseball are so different now. Like, you look at a Kyle Schwarber, he's just mashing, and he's a leadoff guy, which is like, whatever. He's not going to steal you a whole hell of a lot of bases. He's not going first to third constantly. Would you flip that? Would you put Cesar back in that sixth spot where he did find so much success this year and see what the extra at-bats do for Scott?
Maybe. I would at least consider it, but then again, for the sake of what's working well for Kingery, I would like to leave him, where he's comfortable. For
once, not mess with him?
Yes.
I don't know. I think the extra at-bat or two a night, would work wonders for a guy like Kingery and for an offense that's struggling. He can provide you, with more pop than what Cesar can. He's obviously not going to see as many pitches, but, if he's swinging a hot bat and, and he's, I think 17 of his 34 hits this year are for extra bases. Like, if you got a leadoff guy that's putting that kind of stuff out there, that's pretty damn good. But interesting there, nevertheless. It's pretty sad. Hector Neris is probably going to be our only legitimately deserving all-star this season.
Yeah, it's...
Maybe Eflin, maybe he gets in.
I think that Real Muto gets in there.
I do eventually think JT gets in. He's fourth right now amongst catchers? Fifth?
He is. And I also think that Harper's going to make a run. They're going to have a push. They're going to put out the advertisements to vote for Bryce and all that. And I think that he's going to get in. His name is going to carry him. He's been playing well lately. Mm-hmm. He's getting that batting average up there. If he can start hitting more home runs, then I think he's certainly going to get into the All-Star game.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to think so. I would also like to think that, despite his lack of power lately, that Rhys Hoskins goes again for the home run derby. It would be a welcome thing for him to find some lift and launch to his swing. And I think that, that might actually do him some good.
Hey, it worked for him last year. He went on a tear after that home run derby last year.
He is streaky as hell. He is maddening.
He needs to figure something out there. He needs to be more consistent and not so damn streaky. But then again, so does every other player in this whole damn lineup.
Absolutely. All right. So, before we sign off here, for this episode of In Kap We Trust, if you yourself could put one Philadelphia Philly, only one, in the All-Star game, not who you think deserves it, but who you would most like to see represent this city and represent that organization, who are you putting in?
I think everybody should want Bryce Harper representing the team in the city. You don't think
people would want Rhys Hoskins?
I mean, Rhys isn't as big of a name, though. Bryce is... He isn't. The face of baseball, and if he could go into that All-Star game wearing a Phillies jersey representing the city of Philadelphia, I think this isn't a knock on Rhys, by the way, but Bryce.
Well, he's far more marketable, Bryce Harper.
Absolutely, and that's what you want. You want to be able to get somebody who's gonna put the Phillies on the map, maybe sell a few more jerseys, get the team out there, and if he plays well, then the whole team is kind of viewed in a more positive light because of that.
I guess I just kind of look at Rhys Hoskins as still like the guy on this team. He's still, he is the OG Philly right now of this roster. Like him and Nola are your two like captaincy type of people. They were here when we were shit, and here they are now reaping the benefits of the patience of that process to allow us to assign a guy like a Bryce Harper. And I'm not saying, I would love to see Bryce Harper in the All-Star game. One, I'd love to see him deserve it. And two, just like you said, just seeing him there in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform, which is still surreal to me every night when I see the lineup cards. I'm like, damn, we still have Bryce Harper. This is fantastic. But I do sit there and think, for me, I think it would be really awesome if I could pick just one person. The true captain of this team, in my opinion, is still, at this point, Rhys Hoskins. And I would love to see him get in.
So you see this as being Reese's team instead of being Bryce's team.
I do. Yeah, at least right now. And I don't feel like, and I feel like it's that way because Bryce didn't come in with this, like, I'm taking over attitude. Even in initial interviews, he had mentioned, this is Reese's team. He has been here. He has been in this system and organization. He's been here through this shit. He deserves this. And one of the people, when we talked about it in our first week of podcasts for this current season, just how happy we all were that Reese Hoskins got the very first standing ovation, as a result of a play anyway.
Yeah, the grand
of
slam.
The season on opening day. How cool that was for him. I just think that, when it comes down to it, this is still basically his team. So you go Bryce, I go Reese. I say, fuck it. Let's put them both in.
Yeah, seriously, might as well, right? And meanwhile, throw Segura in there, throw JT in there.
Let's just put the Phillies against the AL.
Yeah,
see
seriously.
How we do. Phillies minus Franco.
Minus Franco.
Maybe even Cesar.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be it for this week for In Kap We Trust. We went a little bit longer. We had a lot of content this week. So looking forward to the month of NL East baseball right now. This is going to be really, really critical to see, where we end up at the end of this season is going to come down to this month. So a lot of stuff to talk about in the next 26, 28 days. Rob, your Instagram, your Twitter handle is
@radio_Rob.
And definitely don't follow him until I've hit 1,000 followers on mine, which is Shane_Mead. And if you do listen to us, we also currently have a giveaway going on. We're aiming for 500 retweets. We are so close at 20 something.
We're making progress, though.
Making progress. So go on the Twitters, retweet that there, follow us, follow the podcast, which is @AMY Podcast, and be sure to subscribe to our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. That'll be it for In Kap We Trust here at the Always Next Year podcast. For Rob, I'm Shane. We'll see you next week.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jiggle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, my lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
This has been a production of the Always Next Year Podcast Network. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. Please also remember to rate and review this podcast to validate our members' life choices. We appreciate it. This is AMYP, signing off.